Whenever we encounter something in the world, we're always struck by the fact that there's something here to be known, something that is more profound than the brute facticity and that points towards its deep intelligibility. In our inquiry, we access the natures of things by observing and reasoning about their activities in the world and their observable properties. And so we come to define things by their essences. The essence gets at what a thing is and what its core properties are. For example, a human person is a rational animal. A bird is a living thing that's sentient and can move itself from place to place by flight, and so forth. We can create taxonomies of the various essences of things. But having discovered that a thing is and what it is, we soon come to find that this thing raises causal questions which it cannot answer about its own self. To put it plainly, none of the things procure their own existence. They don't explain why they are sufficiently. Every one of them, human beings, kangaroos, birds, cactuses, trees, stars, they all have a history of being. They come into being, they go out of being. They're caused, and they come to term through the ministrations of other beings and cosmic processes. So from this observation, the observation of the contingency of all things, Aquinas begins to argue for the real distinction between essence and existence in everything we experience. Nothing we experience possesses existence by right, as it were, or according to natural necessity. Everything we experience can exist or not exist. And what is more important even, everything we experience receives its being from others. It has a cause of its existence. Can this be the case for absolutely everything? Can there only be caused beings that receive their existence? Or do we need to posit something prior to caused beings? There has to be something giving being or existence to everything, and that's what we call God. For by contrast with everything we ever encounter, God exists by nature. He doesn't receive his existence from anything. Existence is proper to the very essence of God. So God exists essentially. For everything else, though, there is a real distinction between essence and existence. This is because they're given their existence by the Creator. For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.
The purpose of this episode is simply to lay out the meanings of the terms universal and particular, genus and species. Thomas Aquinas uses these terms often, and it is helpful to have a simple sketch of their meaning, since they will be used in later lessons. In the philosophical tradition, it is common to call the individual things around us particulars. This tree, or that dog, or a blade of grass are all called particulars. But the forms, or essences of these things, for example, what a tree is, or what a dog is, or what grass is, have an interesting quality to them. Each is a form, or essence, but each is applicable to more than one particular. What a tree is, or its form, is applicable to this or that tree in the front yard, or this or that tree in the backyard. What a dog is, or the essence of a dog, is applicable to one dog, and a second dog, and a third dog. Because the forms or essences are applicable to many, they're called universals. A universal is a term applicable to more than one particular thing, and one of the great questions of philosophy is whether universals exist and how. A later episode will take up this question. Another set of important terms is that of genus and species. These are terms of ancient logic. They help us to name ways of predicating terms in a statement and levels of classification. A genus is a general category containing many kinds, and a species is a more specific category within a genus. For example, animal is a general category, but there are more specific kinds of animals, such as mammals and reptiles. And reptiles, in turn, are a general category, with more specific kinds or species, such as lizards and snakes. These more specific kinds may be divided into increasingly more specific categories, until we get to the most specific categories. An example of a most specific category is the human being. Here, the species is not divisible into further kinds, but only into individuals, such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Sometimes these are called most specific species, and the particulars within a most specific species are simply called individuals. For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.
Is there such a thing as human nature, or is that just a conventional idea? In ancient Greek philosophy, investigation of nature actually begins with a reflection on change. Realities around us are constantly changing. So from this observation, Heraclitus postulated that there is nothing constant in the world. Everything is in flux. You cannot step in the same river twice. Therefore, we cannot talk about there being stable natures or properties of things. Continuity is only apparent, and the notion of nature is merely conventional. From the opposite vantage point, Parmenides unabashedly denied that there is any real change happening in the world. On this view, what we call change in the world is just illusory. The ultimate bedrock of reality is unchanging and static. This view also seems to make the various natural things around us unreal, since they are all subject to change. Now, against both these extreme positions, Aristotle argued both that there is real change in the world against Parmenides, since it's something obvious to our senses, but also that there's continuity in things that are subject to change against Heraclitus. In the things that were before, there persist the things that are now. This is where you start to get the idea of an essence or nature of a thing, that which endures amidst the change, that which is in that which was. So there are constants that remain. Think about an adolescent human being that used to be a baby. That baby used to be an embryo. And then you look at that same human being 10 years later and it's an adult, or then later and it's an older person. But there's something that remains in and through all of that, and it's more than just the name of the thing, it's the nature of the thing. The natural kind as a principle of continuity and development. Aristotle describes nature as a principle or cause of motion and rest in that to which it, the nature, belongs, primarily and per se. That means the nature is the thing that endures, but also the thing that helps organize all the change happening in the thing. Because things have nature, we can rely upon them to act in predictable and identifiable ways. And that's the basis of science, as well as common sense. It's partly for this reason that certain features of the intelligible universe are described in terms of laws of nature. Namely, things operate with a kind of persistence because of the type of thing that they are. So though some natural things may fail to achieve their perfection or to act in a way that accords with their perfection, yet we can basically rely upon things to act in predictable and stable ways, always or for the most part. This metaphysical observation lays the groundwork for the natural law. There's a law at work in nature which inclines unto flourishing or perfection. It's very evident in animals. Animals seek their own good through nutrition, growth, and reproduction. Those are predictable features of their nature, and they allow us to organize our knowledge according to stable laws of nature. And in the rational animal, there are operations of intellect and will, of human beings who seek their own good through life and society, through virtuous friendships, and the search for the truth. Nature gives rise to inclinations, And from these natural inclinations, we can begin to seek the basis for the precepts of the natural law, ethical norms that allow human beings to tend to the proper good of man. For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.
Aristotle offers us an account of reality as a whole. In order to understand his account of reality as a whole, we need to understand what he means by the terms substance and accident. So let's take a moment to consider these terms. It is important to pause with these terms since they have quite different meanings in their philosophical and Thomistic usage than they have in ordinary language. In ordinary language, a substance is any sample of stuff. Students in a chemistry lab, for example, will speak of various substances that they're weighing or burning or experimenting with. In ordinary language, accidents are events that happen unintentionally or by chance, such as falling down the stairs or being rear-ended on the way to work. But these terms, substance and accident, have completely different meanings in the philosophical tradition and especially in the usage of Thomas Aquinas. For St. Thomas, substance may refer either to a particular existing thing or to the substantial form of a particular existing thing. A particular dog, such as Fido, is a substance, but so too is the form of Fido, or his essence, which is that of being a dog. That too is called a substance. We understand substance by contrast with accidents. Accidents are the features or traits of substances, such as the weight or color or actions of a thing. Fido, for example, may weigh 10 pounds and have brown fur and bark. These are accidents of Fido. According to Aristotle, and Thomas Aquinas follows him in this, accidents do not exist except in various substances. And substances are the realities underlying and displaying all those accidents. They're called substances because they stand under, substand, accidents. Substances do not exist in other things, but exist on their own. But it is very important to qualify this up front. We are not saying that substances exist independently of God. Aquinas has a metaphysics of participation, which tells us that all substances other than God participate in the very being of God. When it is said that substances are independent or exist on their own, this is said by contrast to accidents. It is not said with reference to God. It is also important to note that for Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas, substances are not inert or static entities. Whatever exists is active. And the more being a thing has, the more active it is. Accidents are active, and substances are even more active than the accidents they underlie. The world is not a place of static individuals, but of active realities. Thomas Aquinas thought that all of reality could be classified according to the distinction between substance and accident. Whatever exists is either a substance or an accident. Aristotle found 9 kinds of accidents in things: qualities, quantities, relations, time, place, action, passion, position, and habit. The substances and these 9 accidents together are famously called the 10 categories. Every finite being whatsoever belongs to one of these 10 categories, but God transcends them all since He is infinite. For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.
One of the most important questions human beings ask is, why? Following Aristotle, St. Thomas Aquinas thinks there are 4 ways to answer this question, traditionally called the four causes. Think about a wooden dining room table. Why is the table this way? Now, the first answer might refer to the carpenter who made the table. He is the efficient cause. In general, the efficient cause is the agent or thing that brings something about. This is what most people think of when they hear the word cause. In fact, the word efficient comes from the Latin term for making. The efficient cause is what makes the thing or the effect. The second answer to this question, why is the table this way, is the material cause of the table, wood. This might make a big difference in the quality and properties of the table. Mahogany is elegant, while pine is more basic. Bamboo is light, while oak is heavy and durable. But there's a third reason why the table is this way. It's the form, or the structure, or the design of the table. This is what we call the formal cause. Now, by form, Aquinas means more than the physical shape of the thing. He's referring to the essence or the nature of the thing, what makes it the kind of thing it is. Now, Aquinas thinks that all natural things have an intrinsic form or essence. The form, essence, or nature of lion is, in a certain sense, why a lion is the kind of animal it is. And this form or nature is really in the lion. Now, in addition to this, Aquinas identifies some forms that are outside or extrinsic to a thing. He calls these ideas or an exemplar. Think, for example, of the table's design. It starts in the carpenter's mind as he thinks about what he's going to make. And this idea then guides his activity. He doesn't saw wood at random, but he follows his plan. In fact, it's a kind of metaphysical law that every act of efficient causality is guided by some formal causality. Now, this idea or exemplar also becomes the measure of the carpenter's work. A novice carpenter might say, well, this table just didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, and by that he means either that his activity of making the table, his efficient causality, somehow went wrong, or that the matter was somehow defective so that he didn't fully realize the idea he had of the table. This brings us to the fourth reason why the table is the way it is. This fourth cause is extremely important, and it's called the final cause because it refers to the ultimate end or reason for the thing. What is a table for? In this case, dining. We can't fully explain something unless we know what it is for. Now, of course, the carpenter might have had other reasons for making a table, like earning money, but that human purpose falls outside of the intrinsic end or reason for the table. The final cause of the table itself, properly speaking, doesn't refer to the carpenter's personal motive, but to what a table is for. Now, Aquinas thinks that these four causes can be applied by way of analogy to everything in creation. And so they offer a very powerful way of explaining the why of things.
For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.
If you're trying to understand something, one of the most important things to ask is, what is it for? St. Thomas Aquinas, following Aristotle, speaks about this as the end or the finality of a thing, that for the sake of which it exists. This is sometimes given a more modern name, teleology, drawn from the Greek word for an end, telos. It's easiest in talking about this to start with artificial things. A car is for the sake of transportation, a clock is made to keep time, and we cannot fully understand these things unless we understand this end for which they exist. Now, Aquinas would argue that teleology, or being ordered to an end, that this is found everywhere. He thinks it's a universal truth, that everything that acts for an end. This may be confusing to some people today, and might even seem doubtful, but we quite naturally think along this line. For example, your eyes are made for seeing, and your teeth are made for chewing food. That's why teeth are made of such hard material. That's their material cause. And why they're shaped as they are. That's their form. And this is why it's a bad idea to open a beer bottle with your teeth. They're not made for that. And if you show up at your dentist's office with broken teeth, he will probably tell you this with a kind of strong moral disapproval. Now, Aquinas thinks that there's a kind of directedness in all things, even in inanimate things. In the world of plants, a tree seeks to grow upwards towards the sunlight. And in the world of inanimate things, a stone resists being broken apart. And while on Earth, it has a tendency, a kind of directedness, to fall towards the Earth's center. A match has a directedness to generate heat. St. Thomas, in talking about things like this, does not mean that a match is conscious of a desire to generate heat. The match isn't thinking about anything. Aquinas is thinking of the reliable pattern that things like matches, insofar as they are matches, do precisely this. They generate heat. Even contemporary science, in a certain way, presupposes this. Science aims to understand reality, which means discovering whatever is intelligible in it. Even where we might at first think we see chaos or randomness, science is often able to show us that there is, in fact, within it, a dynamic system with ordered rules and systematic patterns. In other words, there is an intelligible order that our minds discover already existing in the universe, and we detect it wherever there is a reliable pattern of cause and effect, as in the theories of the Big Bang or evolution or in quantum physics. St. Thomas argues that this order ultimately must come from an intelligent source, which he calls God, who is the ultimate end of all things. There's one further and important conclusion to draw from this. If things have a natural tendency or inclination, if, as the kind of things they are, they're directed towards something, then they will be most perfectly what they are when they are most perfectly doing what they're directed at doing. It's bad for your eyes to be blinded. It's good for them to see. Attaining to the end or the goal is thus more than just a description about your eyes. It also tells us something crucial about what is good for a thing and what leads to its flourishing.
For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.
One of the most important points of confusion about the relationship between faith and science is a philosophical mistake about the difference between God and creatures, and specifically about how God acts in the world in a very different way from all other things. St. Thomas Aquinas refers to this as the distinction between the primary or first causality of God and the secondary causality of creatures. Unlike every creature, God simply is. He is being itself, and therefore he is absolutely uncaused. So he is not simply in our world, he is the very source of the world itself. Everything else, the universe and all of the things in it, all of these things radically depend on God for their very being. This means that God is a radically different kind of cause than every other thing, because he gives to other causes their very being. He makes them to be what they are, and therefore he is the source of their very capacity to cause, and even the source of the precise way in which each thing functions according to what it is as a cause of other things. We call this special causality of God God's primary causality. Now, the causality that creatures have is called secondary causality. That's because they are caused by God. This creaturely form of causality is real and very important. It's, in fact, precisely what modern science rightly investigates. Every cause that we encounter in the world, as long as we're not talking about a miracle, is a creaturely cause, a secondary cause. The fact that God gives secondary causality to creatures is a result of two things: the infinity of his power, that God would give to others the power to be a cause, and it also shows God's goodness, because he desires creatures to have the perfection of being real causes, even causes of goodness in others. Now, Aquinas' principle of secondary causality and the distinction between creaturely causality and God's primary causality prevents us from falling into two common errors. The first error says that God is constantly and directly bringing about every effect in the world, so that the causality of things around us is only an illusion. Such a view makes God too much a part of the world. This is the kind of mistake that some religious opponents of the theory of evolution fall into. They are worried that if we say that something happens in the world due to a natural cause, for example, that species are diversified through natural selection and genetic mutation, if we say this, that we thereby deny that God is causing this. The second error says that God does not have any real causal role in the universe. We don't need him, because this worldly causation can explain everything that we observe. This kind of view has a contemporary analog in the materialistic neo-Darwinians, who claim that because we can account for the development of species by natural causes, genetic mutation and natural selection, therefore God cannot have brought this about through the causality of creatures in his providential plan. In fact, St. Thomas Aquinas' understanding of primary and secondary causality permits him to explain how God is the first cause of the world and at the same time gives to creatures in the world the power to be true causes. So it is the foundation of a right understanding of the relationship between God and creatures.
For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas. And don't forget to like and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.